Succession, the greatest leadership failure. Succession, the greatest leadership failure. Our focus will be on the danger of losing your legacy. The danger of losing your legacy. I don't think that we were born to live for one lifetime. We were born to live to make sure we never die. I want you to think about the statement. You were born to live so that you can live forever. And the only way to make sure you live in a way that you live forever is to leave a legacy. For example, we cannot forget Abraham, because Abraham left Isaac, and Isaac left Esau and Jacob. Jacob left 12 sons, and those sons left sons. In other words, we don't remember their houses, where they lived, but we remember the people they invested in. And so leadership has more to do with legacy than it has to do with projects. And that's what this focus today is on: succession. I want to begin with a few statements that you might want to jot down. I call this the obligation of leadership. The greatest obligation of true leadership is to transfer your deposit to the next generation. That's your greatest obligation. It's not just good enough for you to transfer a title or to transfer a facility, a building, but it's more important to transfer your knowledge, your experience, your lessons, your life lessons, to transfer the values that have helped you succeed. Giving them to the next generation is more important than giving them money, wealth. And so leadership has more to do with taking what made you what you are and giving it to someone else. That cannot happen without mentoring. Secondly, leadership success is measured by the success of your successor, which means that the person or the persons that you invested in should be more effective than you were in continuing the vision, the dream, the idea that you either started or you inherited. This is the true obligation of leadership. Now, the word obligation is strong. Obligation means that this is a responsibility you have to the future. I know that all of you, like I was, have been measuring your leadership success in terms of the size of a building you built, or maybe the size of your salary, or the house you used to build from that salary, or the type of car that you drive. But just remember that all of those things are decaying daily, which means that if your success is built on those things, then your success is eroding daily. That takes me then to redefining what we talked about in our first session. We have some of our students around us who were not here last evening, so I wanted to, for their sake, give you a definition again of succession. What is succession? We talked about this, that succession is the perpetuation of purpose. Purpose is your assignment. Succession is protecting your assignment beyond your lifetime. Succession has to do with preserving all of your hard work after your retirement from that position or even death. So let's look at another definition then. Succession is, and you might want to write this down for the sake of you teaching others, succession is the effective transfer, conveyance, and transition of the leader of his purpose, his intent, his passion, his character, his standards, values, and morals, and even his qualities of leadership to succeeding generations. That's succession. Succession is a very major experience. That list is long in that sentence. Succession means that you are transferring to another generation of leaders. First, your vision. That's a hard thing to do. That means you must transfer your brain and everything it contains to another person. That takes a lot of intimate time together. It takes a lot of vulnerability for them to explore the inner parts of yourself. And you would find that when you study leadership from the context of who I consider to be the greatest leader of all time, Jesus Christ, you will note that he kept 3 people with him all the time. He had 12, but there were 3 he decided to choose as intimate mentees. Sometime he would say to the 12, you 9 stay here. You 3 come with me. And he would take them to an experience that the others didn't have. There are people who you want to mentor, who you have to take with you into environments that others can't go. Because mentoring has to do with exposure to your vulnerability, so they can understand your heart. You may maybe be intrigued why, and we'll talk about this tomorrow, but why he chose Peter to take on his massive organization. Because he exposed him to his weaknesses even. He was the one who would say things like, can you stay with me? Can you stay up with me? That was a sign of him giving them his fear or his anxiety. Are there people in your organization who you take into private parts of your life and say, you know, I'm struggling with this? Succession is normally trusted to those who know your strengths and your weaknesses. For them to get past those objections in your life into your vision, you have to expose yourself. Succession. You have to convey your passion. How do you transfer passion to someone? You got to encourage them to fall in love with what you love. And you'll be amazed that some people around you love the wrong thing. They love your power. They love your position. They love your title. They love your influence. And that's why they're with you. They want that. These are not good prospects for succession, because they love the wrong things. They need to fall in love with your passion, the thing that wakes you up in the morning. If they never capture that, then they will never be a successful successor. So succession is very unknown in leadership. This is why we are dealing with it this entire week. Now, we talk about succession and success. I mentioned this last evening. If you notice, the word succession has the word success in it. And can you imagine that every leader wants to be successful, but he never thinks that succession is success? We think in terms of projects and products and bottom line and profits, but we don't think in terms of people. Buildings don't succeed you. Equipment doesn't succeed you. It's people. And some of you are getting a little older. As soon as you pass 50, you better start doubling up your time on succession, because you really ain't gonna be here too much longer, no matter how much you think about that. So we must begin to consider, what is success? And according to this very word, success is succession. Here's another way I put it. Success has to do with 3 things. We talked about them last night. First, movement. By the way, if you were to study the etymology of the word success, you'll find these 3 words. Success is from the concept of movement, continuity, and follow after. It has nothing to do with money and power and position and equipment and buildings and titles. It has to do with movement. You are successful if your vision outlives you through another person. You're successful. If we forget you after you die, no matter how great your accomplishments were, you were a failure. You should measure your success by the people you left. So succession has to do with continuity. This is why if you don't invest in mentoring people, you will be a failure. This is the reason why most of us are struggling even with how to define success. To succeed means to follow or to go after. So if you say, I want to succeed in this project, your focus should be on the people who will continue it, who will follow after you finish your part. This is the danger of losing your legacy. Succession preserves success. Say that with me. Isn't that incredible? Succession preserves success. Just think about the words. All that you accomplish can be destroyed by someone who comes after you. You wasted an entire life because what you built is handed over to someone who has no interest in what you did. That should make you depressed. Think about that. And some of you are 60, 70 years old already, and you've done a wonderful thing. But my concern is, will it outlast you? And the only way to guarantee that is succession. All right. So true leadership is about continuity. This is the heart of leadership, about continuity. I am working on a manuscript right now because of a contract with a company. And they flew down to see me because they heard one of my sessions on succession. It's a pretty big secular company in New York. And they said, we have never heard anyone present this material in leadership as we've heard. You do. So they sent me a big contract. I prayed for about 10 seconds and signed it. And one of the things that they mentioned to me when they were discussing the whole contract was this point I made in my series. Leadership is about continuity. They said no one talks about that. Everybody's just trying to make it to the top. But they say you're talking about life after the top. There's life beyond the pinnacle. Greatness in leadership has to do with continuity. Will this last beyond me? I also thought it would be good to talk about the priority of leadership. And this is very important information. Number one, the greatest act of leadership is mentoring. That should be your priority. Succession is a production of mentoring. It's a result of mentoring. If you decide that you are going to be successful in providing a successor, then you must make mentoring your priority. Mentoring is hard work. What is mentoring? For the sake of those who joined us, mentoring is to serve as a model, an advisor, a counselor, a guide, a tutor, and an example to another person with the view of producing one greater than yourself. Please write the entire sentence down. The last part of it is more important. Mentoring has to do with making people greater than yourself. Now that's not too normal for humans. If you suffer from inferiority complexes, and there's one right behind you now, don't look, you normally need people to be less than you to protect your superiority. In other words, insecurity always needs inferiority to exist. If you are not secure in your own self, then you always need people around you worshiping you. That's why leaders who need large entourages of people taking care of them are normally suffering from ego problems, security issues. You don't leave legacies if you are worshipped. Sometimes the folks who worship you are glad you died. They finally get to rest. Do you know who Jesus called his closest assistants? Matter of fact, he had to correct them one time. He says, you are not servants. You are my friends. Wow. Tell some leaders that today. That they should do that with their servants. He says, and what's the measure of friends? He says, I have told you everything. I want you to know what I know. Mentoring has to do with making people better than you, so that when you leave, you can take the credit for the greatness. Can you imagine? You worked 40 years building a company, building an organization, building a department in an organization. I mean, you really worked all your life. This is your life's work. And then it dies with you. That's a tragedy. What you want is the next generation of leadership to take what you built and make it 10 times better, because they're going to still say that's your work. Am I right? You will always be the founder or the author. I would rather be, like Walmart. Mr. Walton will always be famous. He transferred his dream to some people who continue his legacy. He started with one store in a small little town. When I read his story, I was intrigued. Do you know how Walmart started? His wife sent him to the store to buy something. And when he went to the store didn't have it. And he went to 4 other stores. He said, this don't make any sense. And they lived in kind of like a small little farm country town. So he had to travel to other towns just to find this thing. And he's like, why can't we have everything in one place? And by the way, that teaches you what I talk about in my books. Business is a product of problems. Whenever there's a problem, there's a business. So unemployment is not your problem. Your problem is you can't find problems. Your being here in this room today is because I am solving a problem. It's a leadership issue. And that's what brings you here. So, if you want to live beyond yourself, your goal is to make those who you mentor greater than you. And that takes a lot of security, doesn't it? A lot of self-confidence for you to be working on someone to replace you and make them better than you. That's the perfect leadership attitude. Words of Jesus Christ again. It is better for you that I leave. Because if I don't leave, you will not do greater works than I've done. His attitude was, I want you to outshine me because I will get the credit. We try to make sure no one shines brighter than us. And when they attempt to, we snuff them out, keep them back, hold them down, make sure they never have opportunity to grow and expand. We even make sure that they don't go to the seminars to grow. We want to go ourselves. So we tell human resource manager, let me go. Well, if you're a great leader, you let your staff go and you stay. Invest in them. Very important. There are three phases of life I want you to think about when we talk about succession and mentoring. I have a picture of a little baby here, all of us in life begin dependent. So the first phase of life is always dependence. Everybody say dependence. Everything created on this earth begins dependent. Whether it's a fruit clinging to a tree, whether it's a baby calf or a pup whale hanging onto his mother's nipples, or whether it's a baby in the womb feeding on the nutrients of a placenta. All of us begin dependent. That means we need mentoring. You need to be trained. And all of you who want to be great leaders must first be dependent. The second phase of life is independence. Independence is maturity of self, where you become capable of expressing yourself and having your own individual identity. That's independence. And everything goes through that. The fruit eventually falls from the tree. Matter of fact, you don't even need to pick it. It will mature itself and then naturally become independent. It'll fall. Every animal becomes independent. Every tree becomes independent from its host. And so do we as humans. So even in leadership training, you have to give people the privilege of independence. After you train them, you give them leverage to experience their own failures, test them, let them try their own wits, give them opportunity to spread their own wings. Stop smothering people. Stop wanting to make all their decisions after you give them delegated power. Allow them to make their own mistakes, knowing that you're there to help them correct them. This is independence, leadership development. And then the last one is the most important, and that is interdependence. We don't think about this much, but the highest form of freedom is interdependence. Now notice the word dependence is still there, but it's interdependence, which means you contribute now to the ongoing development of your species, or you reproduce after your kind. Interdependence is when the person you trained can now train others. Interdependence is when that person comes back to you and starts feeding you. Interdependence means that you've done such a good job in your mentoring that the person who you transfer the power to begins to inspire you. They're giving you nutrients back. I think for those who are religious people here, the Apostle John said something in one of his last books he wrote. He says, your success brings me joy. I rejoice in your success, he says. In other words, when you become great, I feel so good about it. It feeds me back. Allow people to make you proud. Mentoring and succession is good for you. So, what is the ultimate goal of leadership then? True leadership is always aware that their position is temporary. Please write this statement down, because somehow we get the idea that we are permanent in our positions. Especially people who are more inclined for religious positions. Can I suggest to you that being a pastor is not a permanent position? And religious people think, once I'm a pastor, I'm always a pastor. Or they use titles like apostles and bishops. Listen, don't get trapped. Because if you ever fall in love with a title, God can never move you beyond it. True leadership is always aware that their position is what? Temporary. You're the manager now. You ain't manager forever. And when they promote you, handle it with a loose glove. Don't fall in love with any position. Why? You could prevent your own progress. Sometimes we fall in love with salary. We withhold the possibility of greater salary. The goal of a leader then is successful passage of power. My goal is to transfer the baton successfully. That's my goal. My goal is not to preserve my position until I die. My goal is to transfer it successfully. That's true leadership. Very, very serious problem. I have to keep reminding myself that to everything, there's only a season. Say it. Let me tell you something. You're riding high right now on some of the things you're doing. You're setting yourself up. Plan life beyond where you are all the time. Can I repeat this? Plan life beyond where you are right now all the time. Don't plan to maintain your life from what you're doing. Because what you're doing will change. People lose their jobs, they lose their life. Because they had their whole life built on their jobs. That includes being a pastor. You better plan life beyond pastoring. You lose your voice, they're going to throw you out the pulpit. Are you listening to me? You better figure out something to do without a voice. Everything is temporary. You're an athlete, you better never get in an accident. Leadership is about transferring power. So learn how to do it skillfully. We're not begrudging people. Here's an insight. This is a Myles Munroe insight. Leadership is interesting. A true leader does not clone other people in their image. So mentoring is not about making a person dress like you, talk like you, act like you, walk like you, hold their Bible like you, and wear a white suit like you. That's not leadership. That's personality worship. Leadership doesn't clone people. True leaders desire to help other people discover themselves and then to release them to deploy their abilities and their skill in their own generation. This is leadership. You are going to grow old. Grow old with a smile, watching your progenitors succeed you with greatness. I remember reading a story in the Bible when I was a young teenager about Jesus sending out his students on a test. He gave them a little bit of authority, it says, and they went out and did some stuff. And they were very young. I mean, he had just met them like maybe a month, and he trusted them with power, just so they can taste it and see how they react. But when they came back, they started reporting to him. They said, we have done this, we have done that, and this was accomplished, and demons were afraid of us, and we prayed, and sick were healed, and they were excited. And then the result of that discussion ended like this. It says, and Yeshua rejoiced in his spirit over what they had done. Do you get excited when your followers outshine you? He got excited over their success. Great leaders don't want to stay. Write that down. That's good stuff I just gave you. Okay, let me say it again. Great leaders what? Don't want to stay. They don't want to stay. They want to get you quickly trained. Why? They got greater things to do. Remember, every position is a trap. Don't fall in love with a title or a position. It's a trap because it traps you by its very nature. Mentoring and succession is about freedom. When I mentor you and give you transfer power, I am free to do some other things. Only sick leaders don't want to leave. A man and a woman without a dream don't want to leave their position. Because if you had a dream, a great dream, a big dream, an awesome vision, you would always know that where you are is not what you saw. So you're constantly retraining your replacements. Constantly, all the way along life. You keep training your replacements because you know, I am not going to be here. Here's a thought. Leadership is about living beyond yourself. Succession is about life after yourself. So, true leadership is never given to one generation. So you always have to think, I've got to prepare the next one. Later on today in a session, I'm going to give you some reasons why people don't mentor. And you'll be amazed how guilty you are. We don't mentor for some very serious reasons. And you probably are plagued with some of them and don't even know it. Number two, leadership that serves only its generation is destined for failure. If what you are doing is only for your generation, then you are a failure already, because it will die with you. To make sure that your memory lives forever, you invest in people, not projects. My burden and my dream is to see third world leadership grow and advance throughout the world, because we keep killing our future leaders by suffocation. Because products of oppression will always defend their turf, because they are insecure. When you were a former slave, you are afraid to lose a little you gain, because you never had anything. So you would even kill your own brothers to protect it. This is poor philosophy. Number three, our Creator is a generational creator. I did a little study on his attitude years ago, and I discovered that he never speaks to you. I know it sounds weird, but whenever he speaks, he ain't talking to you. He's talking to your loins. He always talks to your loins. When he speaks, he's talking to what you're carrying, not you. He will say things like, your seed shall be blessed. He ain't talking to you. Through you, the nation shall be blessed. He ain't talking to you. He's talking to what you're carrying. He's always thinking beyond you. You're just a temporary, Listen, stop thinking you're permanent. This is not about you. It's about the eggs you're carrying. It's about the sperms you're carrying. That's what this is about. He thinks generationally. This is why one day to him is like 1,000 years. Let me tell you what we think that may be disturbing us deeply. We think that we were born to finish what we started. Mentoring and succession is the acceptance of the reality that you may not finish what you started. Yeah, do you know how long it took to get the land that God promised Abraham? Abraham never got there. So when you are a leader, you must always think in generations. Prepare those who will take your place, and do it with skill. Before this week is finished, I personally will make sure that you get the skills you need to do that. You may wonder why my name is all through this schedule. It's because God told me, don't trust it to nobody else at the moment. This is too serious, because many leaders in this place today, some of you are still going to die with your name, because you haven't been thinking seriously about your replacement. Greatness. Number 4, if your vision dies with you, you failed. I've seen unfinished churches with grass growing among the concrete. Why? Because that leader failed. Oh, he was a great preacher. People shouted at his messages. He's a failure. The weeds will always expose you. Unfinished monuments is a sign of failure, because you did not mentor. You did not invest in the right thing. People. And one of the challenges, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow, is that most leaders occupy themselves with paper more than people. I'm busy. I can't say. What do you mean you're busy? There's a person who wants to see you. Some people wonder, why is Dr. Munroe so accessible? Why he likes me? Because people are what this is about. I want you to remember what I did for you, not a letter that I wrote to a business deal. You invest in people. Jesus never built a building, and he can't die now because he built people. If your vision dies when you die, we won't remember you. You better take a lot of photographs. If you mentor people, they become your photograph. Every time people see them, they'll say, you remind me of him. People become your evidence that you were here. This is mentoring and succession. Now, let me just close with, how do you measure leadership? How do you measure your success? Number 1, the ultimate goal of true leadership is not to maintain followers, but to produce leaders. The goal of leadership is not to keep people with you, but to keep letting them pass through you, hopefully to become greater. Number 2, true leadership measures its success by the diminishing dependency of its followers. This is a very subtle statement. Read it carefully. Write it down. True leadership is measured as being successful when the dependency of its followers diminishes. In other words, the less they need you, the more effective you are. So if you need people to need you and to always be with you and to depend on you, you are not a leader. You are a parasite with a title. You're feeding on people. If you are an effective manager, then you'll get less need by your staff needing direction. They'll come to your office less. And sometimes we feel that that's a failure when we don't see them, because we somehow measure success by them needing me. If you did a good job in training, they wouldn't need you. Some of you pastors, your greatest evidence of your ministry is the size of your altar call. You are sick. You know, here you are as a pastor, you've been pastor for 30 years, and the same people keep coming up every Sunday for help. You are a failure. You should be fired. And yet we feel insecure when no one comes to the altar call. Everybody's saved. You did a good job. Everybody's healed, brother. They ain't sick. You did a good job. Don't be depressed if no one responds. Their dependency is what? Diminishing. Matter of fact, I love again the spirit of Jesus, the great leader. He would say to them, how long must I be with you? In other words, look, learn this quickly. I'm out of here. It's better for you that I go away. He says, wow, what an attitude. I don't need to depend on me. I don't want that. As a matter of fact, he eventually got to the big transfer one time. They kept on asking him for stuff. He would, pay the taxes for them. He would, catch the fish for them. He would, multiply the lunch. And all of a sudden one day he said, look, let me talk to you all, he says. He said, look, I'm getting ready to leave you, okay? And they're like, where you going? He said, look, let not your heart be troubled, man. If you believe in me, who you could see, I want to transfer that same belief to my Father, who you cannot see. Because I don't want you to depend on me because you could see me. Deep transfer. He said, and when I leave, he says, you no longer ask me anything. Transfer. But you will go to my Father and get everything you need in my name. He was releasing them from dependency. Can people live happily while you're on vacation? Can they run the office and even forget you and stop calling in every 5 minutes to see what they're doing? That's a sign of a poor leader. Greatness in leadership diminishes dependency. Number 3, I like this statement. His statement, how long must I be with you? And number 4, the ultimate measure of true leadership is the ability to leave. Are you able to leave? At which you began continues. Now, when I use the word leave, I'm not talking about dying. I'm talking about leaving while you're living. Transfer the whole thing to someone else and enjoy the privilege of watching it expand without you. Oh gosh, oh man, some of you are depressed already. I can see that you're depressed. What, without me? They need me. You are sick. True leaders love to leave while they are alive. Let me tell you why. Most people have succession because someone killed them. You got to kill some people to get them out of the organization because they won't leave. Can you take what you're building and give it over to someone else? See, if it's not yours and you are just a steward, then it's easy to give it up. But if you think it's yours and you own it, or it's your family's property, you don't want to leave it. On Wednesday, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of these issues of who should inherit the ministry for these religious people. Should your children? God doesn't automatically call your children. If you study succession in the Bible, for example, no one who was family got the business. No one. Joshua was not related to Moses. He got the business. Peter wasn't related to Jesus. He got the business. Silas and Timothy wasn't related to Paul. They got the business. Don't automatically think that it has to go to your kids or something. Oh dear. Oh my, what have I done? See, you give it to them when you think you own it. Now, it doesn't mean that God might not in some cases do that, like in David and Solomon. But there are more cases where it didn't happen. So don't walk around assuming that my siblings or my offspring should inherit this. See, God's bigger than your private family. Take a deep breath now. Let your children do what God created them to do. Don't call them into the ministry. Set them free to follow their purpose. Very important. And number 5, true leadership makes itself increasingly unnecessary. Mentoring and succession thinking has to do with leaving. So a true leader constantly makes themselves unnecessary. I guess all of our folks from our organization here and staff who are here will tell you, I don't hardly be around. And then I feel depressed when I come and they don't even notice I'm back. I'm like, hey y'all, hey, and they're like, hi, and they just keep working. I'm like, what do you mean hi? Say something to me, like, maybe I'm a little bit important around here. But the joy is it runs without you. Some of you are sick because you can't take vacation. Because you think everything revolves around you. You built dependency. You've made yourself more important than they think you are. You'll be surprised how quickly they will forget you. You'll be amazed. They will bury you and hire someone while they're leaving the funeral grounds.
Thank you once again for listening to this message, as we hope that it has been a blessing to you. Our goal is to show you new paths and opportunities so that you can discover your purpose. It is your love, support, and partnership that makes Munroe Global possible. Please visit us online at www.munroeglobal.com for more product, partnership, or to join us at one of our live events around the world.
Now, the average insecure leader today, not you, the one sitting behind you, our attitudes are different. Our attitude is, I ain't going nowhere. You might as well just forget this part. You ain't coming here. I've been trying to get here for 20 years. I'm finally here. I ain't going nowhere. So they actually, they turn the question around. They don't say, they don't ask the question this way. How long was I be with you? The question is, how long you been to wait for this? We hold on. You're not a true leader. You're an insecure charlatan, feeding like a parasite, making a position synonymous with your value.